Hi, and welcome to New God Sunday School. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. Both of those books can be pre-ordered by clicking on the pre-order link in the show notes below. So this is Forever People number 9. See the eerie return of Deadman. So we have a return and guest appearance of a character that Jack Kirby was not involved in the creation of. One of the rare instances of that, other than Superman, which is a character Jack Kirby had an immense respect for. According to Mark Evanier, Jack Kirby did not have that kind of respect for Deadman. I like Deadman. I'm a fan. But Jack Kirby didn't like him. He didn't like the concept. He felt like, it was too downbeat. Deadman, what kind of name is that for a hero? It just wasn't, Kirby had a very, very positive view of things and what'll fly in a superhero comic. But Carmine Infantino wanted to revive Deadman and gave it to Jack to work into one of his books. Again, according to Mark Evanier, Jack felt that Deadman could do the least damage in the Forever People, so he shows up here. This is one of the last issues of Jack Kirby's New Gods comics that I acquired in my collection. It's a great cover, looks great. But it's part 1 of a 2-parter. I had read issue 10, which is part 2. Wasn't a big fan, didn't really care to see what happened in issue 9, didn't care to see the setup. But I eventually bought it, and it's not a bad comic, but it's, there's only 11 issues of Jack Kirby's Forever People. It's one of my favorite comics, but it's diverting the Forever People from their war with Darkseid. Darkseid has shown up in every single issue of the Forever People up to this point. He's a co-star of the book, has almost all of his greatest scenes within the pages of for the Forever People, and so it suffers from his absence. Monster in the Morgue. This story feels almost like a demon, an issue of the demon. It's sort of like that becomes sort of Jack Kirby's fallback default thing. When he's sort of in a corner narratively, like, what do I do next? He would do these sort of, tributes to the movie monsters that he loved. And so this is one of them. Also, as we're sort of seeing in Thursday comics, it is a winning formula to have like a series where you got all this sort of, sci-fi or mystical god kind of mythic stuff. It is kind of a good idea to sort of bounce back and forth between that and then sort of cleanse the palette with a more earthbound story or a more sort of like typical superhero story. It does work. It did work in Thor. Those aren't my favorite issues of Thor, but it does work. And I imagine Kirby probably felt it would work here. He probably, if this series and New Gods and all that had sort of gone on uninterrupted, I wouldn't be surprised if, sort of every now and then Jack would have thrown in a little breather story to take you away from the sort of ongoing epic Apocalypse New Genesis war story. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't sprinkle in some of these kind of change of pace issues. But as it stands, this is the first one to come along. And since the series didn't go on and on and on, it's kind of like, oh, we can't afford an issue or two to divert from the main story. I've been enjoying that main story, and there's precious few of it. But anyway, not a bad comic. Drawn with almost the same intensity as all the other stuff coming before it. It's, if there is a difference, if there is like a lessening of Kirby's enthusiasm that makes its way to the actual artwork, there's a tiny bit of it, but still not too far off art-wise, from his the stuff he was doing in the issues leading up to this. And so we have the Forever People who are soon to pursue a monster, with one in pursuit of his murderer, Deadman. Great title treatment by Mike Royer, who is the inker and letterer, written, drawn, and edited by Jack Kirby. Synopsis prepared by Mark Evanier and Steve Sherman. Jack Kirby didn't know who the fuck Deadman was, and he could give two shits. So perfect opportunity for his assistants, Mark Evanier and Steve Sherman, who were comics fans, who did know and appreciate Deadman, and sort of put together a little proposal for Jack. Okay, here's what we could do for a story for the Forever People Meet Deadman. Street crimes breaking out. And, this it kind of also feels a little bit like a Dingbats of Danger Street story. But the Forever People get caught up in a little, street crime incident, try to subdue this thief, Mark Moonrider. Speaking of Mark Evanier, Mark Moonrider, who I believe is based on Mark Evanier. Controlled shock from my megaton touch, just enough to stop that weapon. So we saw him employ his megaton touch in the previous issue. It was a dud. It's a very impressive power, but Darkseid had already negated it before he had a chance to blast, before Mark had a chance to blast it at Darkseid. So here we get to see a controlled, a tiny little burst of the megaton touch to disarm this bandit. Captain Aurora looks a lot like Destroyer Lawyer from Destroyer Duck, and so this guy's knocked out. And now another one of the bad guys has Viking at point blank range. Viking has another power. He had sort of like a tracker power in a New Gods backup. Here he seems to have another power, Magna power. He's a master of magnetic repulsion with the Repella Force effect. So I believe this is the first we're hearing it, but Viking has, I guess, sort of like Magneto powers, which would be interesting to explore if this comic didn't get canceled 2 issues after this. And now Big Bear, again, when he uses his power, it's in a humorous way, but this time it's not like, whoops, I lifted your car up. He is, deliberately trying to stop this guy from getting away. And then I like this, Jack Kirby's comedy. They stick their guns in his gut and he, stop that, it tickles. I said put the car down, look out. Superman famously on one of his early comic book covers also said it tickles. Throws down the getaway car, and Trixie Magruder saying these guys were trying to steal money out of her apartment. Deadman is skulking. The ghost of Boston Brand is sort of skulking around, following this guy who works at the morgue and is trying to resurrect dead bodies. And he's sort of spying on Beautiful Dreamer at Trixie Magruder's apartment. And in the letters columns for the past couple issues, Jack Kirby they've been teasing a new costume for Beautiful Dreamer, which has not surfaced yet until now. Trixie Magruder's giving her some of her 1920s flapper clothes to try on. And Seraphin uses one of his cosmic cartridges to change this sort of old-fashioned dress into something, perfect for 1971 or 1972, whichever year this is that it's taking place. A sort of, which again might be one or two years too late, maybe when fashion was at its most outre. So she's got fringe. I love fringe on superhero costumes. She's got this sort of fringe miniskirt, fringe boots. And Seraphin is showing off his cosmic cartridges. It's like a Batman utility belt on his hat, and each capsule does something different. This one is a life capsule. It's got life force, and it can bring these dolls, creepy dolls that Trixie Magruder has in her apartment. It can bring them to life, at least for a moment. And this guy's like, hey, that's going to be perfect for my sort of, my Frankenstein experiments. So everybody's oohing and eyeing at Beautiful Dreamer's new costume. Magenta, great color choice too. And so this creep finally decides to show his face. He's going to hang out, and they're going to have a seance. Trixie Magruder, one of those great sort of, like a Mrs. Roper or something, like a 70s kook, and she's going to have a seance. But during this during the seance, this guy's going to try to steal Seraphin's hat with all the cosmic cartridges. But this seance, it's not bunk. Boston Brand looking great here. I mean, the way Kirby renders him and stuff, just great. I mean, I'm accustomed to seeing a Deadman drawn by Neil Adams, but I mean, Kirby knows his way around sort of spooky ghost stuff. And this is just like an amazing panel right here. All that Kirby crackle, the deep shadows. Big Bear notes that he believes it's Beautiful Dreamer making all that Kirby crackle just to sort of, make Trixie Magruder feel good about her little seance. But yeah, she does summon Boston Brand. He shows up. Love that red and green. Look, this just looks awesome. Great sequence here. There's a panel like this in one of the Dr. Bedlam issues of Mr. Miracle. And Trixie's, freaked out by the experience. She's bitten off more than she could chew. Seraphim realizes one of his cosmic cartridges is gone. That doctor's gone. That creepy doctor's gone. And now he's back at the morgue. He's got his Frankenstein. He administers the capsule. And now this corpse is alive. And so we get like a little Frankenstein remake. This guy bashes that guy right against the wall and busts out. Really great stuff. It's just, it's like the clock's ticking. I want some, Apocalypse, New Genesis stuff in my, if I only have 3 more issues of the Forever People to go, I don't want to be distracted by some stuff that would probably play better in an issue of The Demon. But in any event, looks great. And the Forever People look great here. It's like we get, it's kind of like, what if the Forever People, instead of being, Jack Kirby gods that are part of this like amazing epic, what if they were, just superheroes? And so that's what we get this issue. And, they're pretty good superheroes and could have stood the test of time that way. Big Bear, as a historian, is very captivated by this, revival of old monster movies playing, as is Jack. Got the Kirby Unleashed portfolio. Viking is pinned to this wall. This monster who's got, some new Genesis power from that capsule has pushed Viking's magnetic power right back at him. Now, Mark Moonrider fighting an out-of-control giant animated corpse does not need to hold back on his Megaton touch, so we get some Kirby superpowers employed here. So what a great design for like a sort of Frankenstein monster to have this sort of, mummy wrapping on his face. This whole monster look, it's classic. It's familiar in a way, but also very new. I don't know that I've seen anything exactly like this from the Frankenstein factory. And so the battle continues. That guy who got smashed against the wall, that creepy doctor, he's okay. By some miracle, he's okay. And this sort of, mummy Frankenstein, he goes into the underground in the sewers, which this also kind of reminds me of when the Eternals starts to go off the rails, when editorial meddling and the office is like, oh, Jack, can you put the Hulk in the Eternals? He kind of does the same thing there. Like eventually, like sort of some, super mummy kind of shows up and there's action in the sewers. So it's almost like it's like a default mode he goes to when it's like, time to sort of play ball and not, follow his muse, but instead follow editorial dictates. And so here's where Boston Brand comes in to the story as an active participant. Deadman is a ghost. He's immaterial, but he can take possession of bodies if he's able to. And so he takes possession of the body of the monster to try to stop the monster from destroying the main gas line and blowing up the whole neighborhood. The gas ignites, but Boston Brand was able to smother the blast by taking control of this monster's body, and now he's speaking through the monster as Seraphim's using his cosmic cartridges to seal up the breach. And so he's telling them he's who he is and how he's trapped inside this body. And so then the ghost emerges, and again Seraphim's cosmic cartridges are heavily featured in this issue, and he uses them to solidify Boston Brand's ectoplasmic molecules into a solid form, at least temporarily. And now they are face to face with, for the first time, a solid Deadman. Deadman says, "You are friends with unique powers. I need the ability to function beyond the context of mystic form. Say no more, Deadman. You shall have a body. You shall become a being of new Genesis. And the blue cartridge still taped to the creature we give to you. It will be the heart and motion of your new form. And with its help, we're certain that you'll track down your murderer. 2 big things to come. Deadman will have his new body, but his first lead to his killer will astound both you and his friends. Don't miss the Scavengers." Also, an announcement of a diabolical new machination from the Kirby Scream Machine. Look for it, especially in the dark of the moon. So Kirby was working on the demon at this point, so it's no coincidence that his mind was sort of in that sort of monster matinee mode when he was making this comic. And so, we have a Sandman and Sandy backup. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. You can pre-order both of those books by following the pre-order link in the show notes below. I'll see you next time for New God Sunday School.